Stop what you are doing right now, because the information I am about to share with you changes everything we thought we knew about the Toronto Blue Jays offseason plans. This isn't speculation from some random beat writer trying to get clicks. This isn't a hot take from a podcaster with sources that may or may not exist. This is coming directly from Jeff Passan, the most credible insider in baseball, and what he's reporting should have every single Blue Jays fan paying attention, because the implications are massive. Jeff Passan just dropped a report that confirms what many of us have been hoping for, but we're almost afraid to believe. According to Rival, the Jays are considered the frontrunners to land Kyle Tucker. Let that sink in for a moment. Not just in the conversation, not just interested, the favorites. And when Jeff Passan puts his name on something like this, you better believe he's done his homework. This isn't Bob Nightingale throwing something at the wall to see what sticks. This isn't some Angrate or account recycling rumors. This is Passan, the guy who doesn't report anything unless he's absolutely certain it's legitimate. But here is where it gets even more interesting. Passan didn't just say the Blue Jays are favorites for Tucker. He specifically mentioned that Toronto has no plans to slow down after making their first World Series appearance in over 3 decades. Those words matter. No plans to slow down. That's not the language of a team that's content with just making it to the big stage. That's the language of an organization that understands they have a legitimate window right now and they're going all in to maximize it. This is exactly what the fan base has been begging for, demanding aggressive moves, real commitment to winning, not just participating, but dominating. Now let's talk about what makes this Kyle Tucker situation so compelling. Tucker is 28 years old, entering his prime, coming off another elite season with the Astros. He's a complete player who can hit for average, hit for power, play exceptional defense, and run the bases intelligently. He's exactly the type of impact bat this lineup needs, the kind of player who makes everyone around him better. Add Tucker to a lineup that already features Vladimir Guerrero Jr. means opposing pitchers have nowhere to hide. You can't pitch around Vlad if Tucker is hitting behind him. You can't pitch around Tucker if Vlad is hitting in front of him. That's the kind of protection that changes an entire offensive philosophy. But here is what makes Passan's report even more significant. He mentioned that the Blue Jays could conceivably sign both Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette. Read that again. Both. Not either or. Not choosing between the two. Both players potentially landing in Toronto. Now think about what that means for roster construction. You'd be looking at an infield anchored by Bichette at shortstop and an outfield Springer alongside guys like George Springer. That's not just improving the roster. That's building a championship core that can compete for multiple years. The timing of all this couldn't be more perfect either. Yesterday was the deadline for players to accept or reject qualifying offers. And something fascinating happened. Trent Grisham accepted his qualifying offer from the Yankees. Now on the surface, that might not seem relevant to the Blue Jays situation, but stay with me, because this matters more than you think. The Yankees were reportedly one of the teams most interested in Kyle Tucker. They've got the financial resources, they've got the need for outfield help, and they're always in the mix for premium talent. But Grisham accepting that $22 million qualifying offer completely changes their financial flexibility. Think about what the Yankees are dealing with now. They've got Grisham locked in for next season at significant money. They've got to figure out the Cody Bellinger situation. Reports are already circulating that ownership doesn't want to push the payroll too far beyond $300 million. Every team has a breaking point, even the Yankees. And Grisham accepting that qualifying offer might have just pushed them past their comfort zone when it comes to pursuing Tucker. That's one less major competitor in the race. And it's happening at the exact moment when the Blue Jays appear to be making their strongest push. And it's not just the Yankees' situation working in Toronto's favor. Look at what's happening around the rest of the league. The Dodgers are always mentioned when a superstar becomes available. But multiple reports suggest they're not willing to go as high as Tucker's camp is hoping for in terms of total contract value. Philadelphia could be in the mix if they lose Kyle Schwarber, but even that feels like a long shot compared to the focused intensity coming from the Blue Jays front office. The competition is thinning out naturally, and Toronto is positioning themselves to take full advantage. What really stands out about Passan's reporting is the confidence behind it. He's not hedging. He's not using wishy-washy language like could be interested or might make sense. He's stating clearly that rival executives view Toronto as the favorite. That tells you something about the conversations happening behind closed doors. It tells you the Blue Jays have made their intentions known throughout the industry. Other teams know Toronto is serious. Most importantly, players like Kyle Tucker know Toronto is serious about building something special. Let's also address the Bo Bichette element because that's still a major storyline. Passan mentioned that teams remain interested in Bichette at shortstop, which isn't surprising given his talent level, but the fact that Toronto conceivably keep Bo and add Tucker shows you the financial commitment this organization is willing to make. For years, the narrative around the Blue Jays was that they'd never spend like the big market teams. They'd always be one step behind when it mattered most. Well, if these reports are accurate, that narrative is completely dead. This is a franchise saying we're not just participating in the arms race, we're leading it. Here is also the starting pitching component that can't be ignored. Passan mentioned the Blue Jays remain active in pursuing top-end starting pitching, whether that means going after someone like Corbin Burnes in free agency or exploring trade options for controlled starters. The message is clear. Toronto isn't just focused on one area. They're looking to upgrade everywhere they can. The bold to the reports, which makes sense given how crucial late-game situations become in the playoffs. This isn't a team making one splash and calling it an off-season. This is comprehensive roster building at the highest level. What makes all of this even more exciting is thinking about what a lineup featuring Tucker would actually look like. Imagine a batting order that includes Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, and Tucker in some combination. You are talking about 4 legitimate threats that can change a game with one swing. You are talking about the kind of offensive firepower that opponents have to game plan around for an entire series. That's the difference between being a good team and being a legitimate World Series contender. 1 or 2 elite bats can completely change your ceiling, and Tucker represents exactly that kind of addition. But let's be realistic about what needs to happen next. Reports are great. Insider information from credible sources matters. But none of it means anything until T here is a signature on a contract. The Blue Jays have been in this position before, where they were linked to big names only to come up short when it mattered most. The difference this time feels like genuine organizational commitment. The front office has shown a willingness to spend in recent years. They've built a core that's ready to compete right now. They've created an environment where star players actually want to come and stay. All the pieces are in place for this to actually happen. The other element working in Toronto's favor is the market timing. We're seeing an unusual offseason where multiple players accepted qualifying offers, suggesting there might be some uncertainty about contract values across the league. Teams might be more cautious with their spending than in previous years. That creates an opportunity for aggressive organizations to capitalize, and Toronto appears ready to do exactly that. While other teams hesitate or wait for the market to develop, the Blue Jays can strike decisively and land their primary target before anyone else even makes a serious offer. What this all comes down to is belief. For too long, Blue Jays fans have watched their T.